I did a Jadu keynote about 4 years ago, was it, in Birmingham, something like that? And I was haranguing everybody to share stuff and use digital platforms to share and do all these things, which is kind of my familiar topic. So I work in, I'm an ex-consultant, as you'll hear about in a second, but at the moment I work in a business school, Exeter Business School. My job as a non-techie, maybe one of the only non-techies in the room, is to help businesses think about what to do with their technology. That's kind of what I do. And I find it helps being a non-techie because it helps to ask the kind of dumb questions. Like all of us, agent technology is kind of turning all of our worlds on its head, and it's turned the academic world on its head, as I'm sure many of you are aware. Because basically, in the age where everybody with access to a web browser can use these tools, what value am I as a professor? I mean, who needs professors anymore? Because we've all got these tools. And so we are turning ourselves on our heads at the moment next to business school, rethinking all of that. And ultimately, the answers we've come up with, and the answer I've come up with so far, as I've been trying out new material and rethinking it, I've ripped up a lot of my standard slides. I've ripped them up. And I'm standing in front of you here kind of newly humble, really, and outside my comfort zone. I thought I'd try and show you what I've been working on. And I was a bit worried about it. I ran it past Suraj the other day, and he thinks it's going to be of interest and not completely mad, but we'll see, and I'll judge from your expressions how this goes. But the idea is basically that we've all heard of the phrase prompt architecture. Anybody has got access to the tools, but it's the framework, the kind of framework you use to ask the right questions, basically. So what I want to do is to take you through the framework I'm using at the moment, and hopefully it'll be helpful, and best of all, it's free. Now, we've been hearing about digital layer and Agent X. I guess the question is, from a business perspective, where do you point it? Which are the use cases that you might want to use this stuff in, right? And that's kind of what I want to focus in now in this kind of slightly left field talk. So where do you deploy it? And I've been having fun with ChatGPT, thinking that through in a structured way, and I want to show you quite how successful I think it's been, okay? So I talked about needing to ask the right questions. So the three things I've got my kind of 20, 25 minutes to share with you and to kind of exemplify that I find really helpful in helping organizations start to think about how to edge into AI, where to point the stuff, basically. Target operating model, many of you will be familiar with this concept, goes in and out of fashion. I'm here to announce it's definitely massively back in fashion. So we're going to have a look at that, which then decomposes into functions, shows you the functions you have in your organization. Don't worry, you'll see what I mean in a second. And then underlying that, capabilities. And I want to kind of demonstrate it to you so that hopefully by the end we will agree. Which means, of course, that no one needs consultants to do this stuff. So if anyone's thinking of hiring one of our kind of standard consulting friends to help you to think about where to point AI in your organization, don't. Just stop, okay, and save yourselves a fortune. So I speak as an ex-consultant, so I couldn't have said this a few years ago because I got fired. Okay, so target operating models. Incredibly, for a sector that has so much duplication, 430 councils, each serving health, social care, police, ambulance, third sector housing, kind of, just coordinating and sharing and duplicating all this stuff, you don't, to my knowledge, have a very well-developed target operating model. In other words, can you point to, this is the standard local government target operating model that we've all agreed on? To my knowledge, the answer to that is no. Target operating models are fantastic for thinking through these functions. What are the functions in the organization? A nice map, and of course, in this era of kind of components and modularization, I think about Lego bricks a lot. Here's an example of a sector that's doing better than your sector. It's the social housing sector. And I only got hold of this because I drove up the M1 for about 9 hours, I live in Dorset, last year, and sat down with a very senior ex-COO of multiple social housing organizations, and she drew this. So her contention is that almost every single social housing organization underneath it, we all love being special, don't we, looks a bit like this, okay? Over in the HE, my sector, the university sector, I would say, in fact, we are leading, as you're being very smug, the kind of common target operating model game. In other words, where are all those sectors, health, local government, police, health is huge, obviously, because hundreds of NHS trusts with similar operating models. Universities, there's 136 universities. We're all shutting kind of the front line, but duplicating all this rubbish. This is, and the reason this looks better developed than the preceding one, is because there's a couple of organizations, JISC and UCISA, who actually work on this stuff. And they've started, amazingly, by the way, at identifying the bits in red that we all ought to be starting to share as a matter of urgency. Fantastic. So when is local government going to do that? The reason I put that up is because those are maps of functions. What are the functions in your organization? And every single one of those functions, of course, comprises, thinking about the Lego bricks, these enabling capabilities. And actually, I want to, before diving into what I've been working on recently, just to explain the power of that thinking using one of my favorite case studies from the methods days, which certainly one or two people in the back, not looking at anybody in particular, from methods will recall. So I'm still kind of proud of this. But just before I do, I want to kind of demystify this idea that the AI is this kind of massive brain that we kind of point at things and things happen all over the place. Unless we understand the enabling capabilities that surround the AI, we're not going to be able to make it work. Another way of putting it is an AI in itself is like a brain in a vat with no eyes, ears, arms, nose, legs, what other senses and things have I missed out? Right? It's just a brain in a vat. You've got to connect it to stuff to make it do things. So here's an example, one of my favorite examples. By the way, my favorite tech podcast is Hard Fork. They're fantastic. There's a couple of kind of West Coast tech bros. They're really funny, really I highly recommend it. It's free, and they provide a kind of weekly roundup of what's hot and what's not in the world of AI, particularly kind of gossip as well. They're really funny. So do have a listen to this. This is something where they basically, OpenAI announced a new AI model late last summer, and this was, hopefully this video will work. This is what it sounded like.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Rocky. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm awesome. Listen, I got some huge news.
Oh, do tell. I'm all ears.
Well, in a few minutes, I'm going to be interviewing at OpenAI. Have you heard of them?
OpenAI? Huh? Sounds vaguely familiar. Kidding, of course. That's incredible, Rocky. What kind of interview?
Well, it's for a software engineering role, but I just need to know, do I look presentable, professional?
Well, Rocky, you definitely have the I've been coding all night look down, which could actually work in your favor. Maybe just run a hand through your hair or lean into the mad cheese vibe. Your enthusiasm is what's really going to shine through.
I don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to throw this on. What do you think?
Oh, Rocky, that's quite a statement piece. I mean, you'll definitely stand out. Though maybe not in the way you're hoping for an interview.
Okay.
Which one's the AI? Hey, both of them, no. Which one's the AI? Yeah, the female's the AI, right? So we've just got to remember that thing is just throwing predictions and colossal quantity of data and processing power to produce that. But think about how it's doing it, and think about what it's doing. They often say that, I've always, for example, admired Eddie Izzard, the comedian, because he can deliver, back to the language theme today, his kind of comedy gig in Paris and Germany in fluent French and German. So cracking jokes in somebody else's culture is kind of often seen as the highest level of sophistication. Think what she's doing there. She's flirting with him. The machine is flirting with Rocky and cracking jokes. The level of sophistication to produce that is absolutely extraordinary. But that's not just some kind of brain in a vat. I was intrigued by this. I was sitting very bored on the train coming back from a conference, and I actually asked AI to figure out what all the enabling capabilities were that go in to produce what you just heard. So it was the AI, the bit at the bottom, finally, and all those other Lego bricks, those enabling capabilities. Okay? So we might have a kind of function, a job to be done, but we need as a business to be able to start thinking about what are the enabling capabilities we're going to plug together to make it work. And here's the example I wanted to show you, still proud of, that we did at Methods with Swindon. And now I know quite a lot of councils, probably all of you do it now. This was like 5 years ago, back when it was really clever. The point isn't to say how clever it is. The point was to explain how he did it. So obviously, green waste, a big problem, very politically important. People get cross about it, and it's expensive because you have to, as you all know, split out the different types of waste. So at the function level, back to the target operating model, it's a bit like a use case, right? What do we want to do? There's the use case. Okay, that's the job we want to do. And then we said, what enabling capabilities do we need to make it happen? And I'm sure many of you by now are doing similar kinds of things. We've got some very cheap cameras, strapped them to council mobile assets, so bin trucks and lorries and buses, and they went around uploading the street scene all day, every day, 24/7, right? And then, of course, we pumped it through optical character recognition. Where is the stuff? NLP, what do we want to know about it? Geolocation services, where is it? Then the clever part, the AI part, and then some web services to plug it back into the LOB systems in the council, right? So we had to think through bunging together those Lego bricks, those enabling capabilities to make our use case work within that function. Without that thinking, it just wouldn't have happened. And by doing that thinking, we were able to deliver it in about 3 months for about, I can't remember, £25,000. It was at the time extremely cheap, extremely fast, and really eye-opening. So that's the kind of digital innovation you can do with AI by thinking about what the enabling capabilities are that you need to string together to produce a use case. Remember, I'm not a techie, as Steve at the back knows well, okay? What attracts me about it as a non-techie is because this thinking can cut through a lot of the kind of, the technical kind of, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And it did pretty well that year itself. And this was a few years ago now. Here's an image of what we did to kind of reproduce that use case, that reproduced a service pattern, and this time we pointed it at potholes. So where's the thing? What do we need to know about it? Can we kind of do some measurement about it? And then can we dispatch some kind of intelligent response to sort it out? So that's an example about kind of how to innovate with it. Do we have to play the whole video before we move on? No. So I want to kind of edge into part 2. So I've talked about how to innovate with enabling capabilities within a function, and how it's so important when thinking about it as businesses to not just think about the AI as a kind of Wizard of Oz, kind of Shangri-La. Actually, it's just a thing that we plug together with some enabling capabilities, as I just showed you. But of course, like all of us, I'm also interested in who's going to lose their job. And so I was kind of looking at this. This came out, I think, last week. And being an academic, I was interested in the working paper underneath it, which I won't try and blather on about too much, but basically what it said is between actuaries and accountants, these academics at MIT last week said, how can we work out whether it's actuaries or accountants who are going to lose their jobs most? And as the blue bit I've highlighted just there explains, basically it's by looking at those, what we're calling capability levels. So in other words, computers, AI, is able to automate and engage with things, use cases, at the capability level. So if you want to look at that, accountants do a whole range of tasks at the capability level, and the idea is that accountants will lose some of those kind of algorithmic ones at the bottom level, and they're going to have to kind of raise their game, but they won't necessarily lose their jobs, whereas they're saying actuaries are actually more likely to lose their jobs because what they do is kind of more repeated, standardized capabilities, which at the level that the machine can get to them are more likely to be automated. Okay, so by looking at the capability level, not the function level, we can start to really engage with building up some use cases to use AI in our organization, okay, if that makes sense. So that's the kind of the preamble, okay, the importance of target operating models, functions, capabilities, and I just want to blast you through some fun I've been having with ChatGPT in terms of thinking this through. And my point is, everyone in this room can do this at home for free, because I did. And this is kind of where I'm at. It's work in progress. I may even evolve it into a kind of a proper methodology here, but you're actually the first to see it. Don't worry about all the words here, just look at the bits in bold and the underline. So this is a kind of set of tasks I wrote for it, okay? And you can see the more things I've learned, the more input you give it, the better the result you get back. A bit like what Suraj was saying about, junk in, junk out. So you try and brief it. I'm going to be using the outputs to explain to an informed audience the value, so it knows what I'm trying to do, okay? So I'm going to feed it the sector, local government, It's going to identify the different functions, and I'll take you through it now, right? So what are the functions in a standard local government target operating model? Can you then draw them out for me? Okay, so you're going to see it in a minute. It's quite simple, simpler than the ones I showed you, but hey, this was about 10 minutes work, okay? Then decompose them. I want to know what the capabilities are. Let's get to that capability level, which, as we've just seen, starts to enable us to think about where to point it, right? What we're going to do. And then we want to rank them, because some of them, of course, are not suitable for AI, like the accountant actuary thing, and some of them are really suitable. So you want some kind of structured methodology so that you can actually comb through all of your functions and capabilities in your organization and start to identify a kind of a triaged, stack-ranked list of where to start looking in order to be able to use AI. That's what I was after here, okay? So we're going to rank them according to AI readiness, and then we're going to regroup them back again into our target operating model, and that gives us an idea of some of those functions we're going to take a look at first. Okay, you ready? So let's go. So this is the first one. So I'm asking it to identify the constituent functions for my organization. And of course, this is taking a generic target operating model for local government. You can feed in, as Suraj was kind of explaining, and I'm sure many of you know already anyway, you can feed in some of these documents. So the more of your own organization's documents you feed in, the better, more accurate the result you're going to get. So that's what it did. This is just on a kind of generic one, okay? So step one, bang, there they are. I'm not going to read it all to you. You can read this stuff for yourself. You can just see there's a bit of a decent structure there that kind of looked right to me, and I've been working kind of adjacent to this sector for long enough to kind of know what I'm looking at. So by the way, they're clusters. You'll see what I mean in a second. In other words, in those earlier models I showed you, that was a high level. There were clusters of functions. So these are all the functions. Here we go. Whole bunch of stuff that you do. You do a terrific amount for people, and it's all there on the right-hand side. They're clustered into those broad areas. So then I said, can you draw the functions into a target operating model for local government? Again, it's pretty Mickey Mouse, but it's a start. Here it is. Sometimes, as you know from playing with this thing, it hallucinates and produces loads of gibberish. So sometimes you have to kind of push it a bit, and I'm going to show you a bit more about pushing it in a minute. So there it is. So I've got a bunch of clusters in my target operating model, and each of these is a function. Each of those is a function. With me so far? Yeah? Okay, I'll go on then. So now, this comes the clever bit, we want to decompose them into the capabilities, right? Because again, at function level, how are you going to answer those questions about where to use AI in your organization? Where are the use cases? Who knows, right? You know, should we just make it up? Or is it better to have some kind of structured approach so you can then tell the hires up that you've actually done it on the basis of some kind of thinking? So decomposing them. So here we go. Now this is an example of how I had to push the model. I had to really push it. So my experience, I don't know about yours, of using these tools is they're okay, but they kind of just give you a bit of a shoddy product to begin with, and you have to push it. So here we go. It says, thanks so much. I've created and displayed a detailed table. Here we go. I said, thank you. Please can you include lots more constituent capabilities within each of these functions as these too high level at present. Thank you. Then it said, I've now significantly expanded the capabilities for each function, providing multiple, it's very good at using kind of nice, fancy, multiple granular examples, in kind of consultant speak. So let me know if you want to continue the level of detail. And I said, thanks. I'm always very polite to it. I kind of find maybe it'll be good for me back again. Thanks. This is much better. But as you know, each of these functions contains more capabilities than the ones you've listed. Can you basically just try a bit harder, please? So that's my third prompt, but my second pushback, okay? And then it says, I've now generated a substantially richer set, many more granular tasks. Let me know if you'd like to push it even further. Well, of course, yes, please, thank you very much. That's kind of what I wanted the first time. So when you start using it, just get used to pushing it. It's not a human, you can push it as hard as you like, and it gets better and better. The more context you give it, and the more you push it, you start to get professional quality outputs rather than kind of gibberish or, you know, junk in, junk out. I'm learning this all the time, but that's what I've learned so far. So it did that, and that was great, actually, because actually it wasn't just, so you can see it's listing the functions, so there we've got 12 under policy development and another 10 under strategic planning and whatever, but actually it produced 221 capabilities organized into functions. I can't remember, at some point I'll show you a blow up of that. So then Then, of course, so we've got our capabilities. We've got 220 capabilities of interest in our council, identified according to function. But which are the ones which are kind of AI capable and ready, and we're going to get some kind of bang for our buck, for our investment? So then that's what it did. So it ranked AI readiness, strategic priority, and according to kind of quick win. It did it all the way across all 220 of them. And that's quite a list there. And then, of course, I just wanted to regroup them back into the function so we can work at the capability level, but also maybe it might be interesting to see what it might look like if we kind of shivered and reconfigured our target operating model functionally according to where those candidates are. So there we go. This I found actually slightly less useful because there's a lot of, what I discovered is there's a lot of variation between each of the functions in your organizations between the AI readiness of many of their use cases. What I was trying to do is to say, maybe, I don't know, IT operations is more or less a good place to start, right? Or, as opposed to development control. And I found there was actually quite a lot of variation, only through working with this tool. And then I wanted some example use cases. This is when we kind of get to the interesting part, right? That's a big list. So these are all use cases. Now, my guess is that to produce analysis like this, I'm not saying it's perfect, we know that, we have to check stuff, right? And then, of course, you can interrogate it. You can say, why do you think that, exploring AI opportunities to streamline liaison with legal teams and whatever is a two or whatever? So you can then go and spend some time with it. But this is stuff that 2 or 3 years ago, many people would have quite happily paid one of our consulting friends 50 grand for and got some slideware. And you can do this in a matter now of minutes. Okay, I'll give you one more, the kind of final thing in a second. So finally, I'm going to redraw the operating model, as I said. There it is. So they're color-coded according to where to start, although that's a bit I found maybe slightly less useful because I found there's a lot of variation between these in terms of AI readiness. So that's what we did. It's all very helpful. It reminds you what you've done, identified the functions, drew a TOM, decomposed, ranked them, prioritized them, listed the use cases, and redrew it with my color-coded priorities. Wow. So one other just sting in the tail, because I got excited at this point, because I've spent kind of 25 years in a consulting business kind of doing this stuff, by hand. This is just extraordinary. So I said, it was the next day. I've been sleeping on it, and I woke up going, right, I'm going to get back in again. Me again. One last thing. Is it possible to redo that table, functions with capabilities and priorities, to indicate which kind of AI is suitable? Because we know there's different types, right? Automation, LLM, or agential. So there we go, full extended data set. And I went, great, I won't show it to you, I'll show you the final one. I then said, can you comment on the advised next step for each of them, and what would you advise the council to do to progress it in each case? And it kind of, once again, produced not a very good answer. So it looks kind of fine. So automation, here's some examples. Well, there's some generic advice. It wasn't very good. So I said, please could you add next steps advice for each one of the capabilities, all 220 of them? Right, with AI priorities and suitable AI types table. So these are use cases. It's a bit too big, actually, Suraj, I think. Yeah, there we go. You can probably see that. So obviously we've got some, if we just scroll to the left, we'll just have a look right up the top. There we go. So we've got the function, got some capabilities. You can see them all there. So a bunch of assessment criteria. You've got some use case examples against those. You've got the type of AI you're going to start to deploy, and then you've got some recommended next steps. Now, once again, this is not perfect, I accept that, but I just can't believe what suitably prompted what the power of this thing is. And I can just begin to wonder what you as professionals in this sector, really knowing what you're talking about, could do, feeding it some of your council documents and pushing the models. That's basically what my messaging was. I think personally, it's just blown me away. So anyway, it's all work in progress. Yeah, there we go. So, digital layer is great. Agent X is great. But it's only as great as your business-enabled kind of thinking in terms of where you're going to deploy it, what you're going to use it for. And of course, I guess to end once again, in a world where everybody is making this up as they go along, because this is all kind of frontier edge stuff, then how are you going to have a structured approach, again, when you go to the higher-ups, the budget holders, and saying, well, actually, we're going to have these pilots. How are you going to evidence that you've actually taken some kind of structured approach? And kind of my business school framework for you would be start with the target operating model, show you understand it and the functions, show you understand the enabling capabilities and the use cases that may go with that, and then rank them and go from there. So there we go. And the good news is nobody needs consultants. So hooray, yes. Thanks, Lol. Good.